Well, welcome to the No State Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens, author of Adventures in Legal Land, and we're back here for a few minutes post-trial with Mike, who was, we spoke about it on the show, and this is with the article. You already know that he was convicted on 2 misdemeanor tax charges, but there was a hung jury on the 2 serious charges, the felonies. But welcome back, Mike. Just give us some of the details about what happened yesterday. Finding out that the jury was hung on the 2 felony charges.
Yeah, Mark, thanks so much for having me, and I also want to thank all of your group for input, support, caring, wisdom, and encouragement. Got a great team there, and if there's somebody I'm not naming or missing, please know that I'm sincerely grateful. So yesterday, again, I've never been in court before, so I think I went to a traffic court, and I did beat that traffic ticket, by the way, and I did not know your stuff. But hey, I've never even seen a trial, and you guys already know I don't know, like, even how to speak courtroom stuff, and so I don't know all these procedures and everything. But when I walked in, I guess I just missed the jury, and nobody was in there. There was a couple of court clerks, and they said, "Well, just make sure no matter what, we've got your cell phone number. Go do whatever you want to do." And if we call you, you need to be here in 15 minutes. That's kind of the guidelines here. So anyway, so that said, I wasn't in court other than, as a matter of fact, I beg your pardon. We did have to go to court a couple of times because the jury kept asking questions, and I was just so thrilled that the question that came yesterday, it was about 11 a.m. I'd been there, 3 hours, and the jury asked a question to the court about applicability of laws relative to the Constitution. And if I am paraphrasing, and that's not exactly what it was, but I think everyone gets the understanding there.
Right, because your main point, though, going through the trial, of course, was facts that the code was applicable.
That was what. Listen, if Mark, if you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and I come over to your house and you say, "Mike, I'm going to kick your tail," and I accidentally assault you and beat you up, I would go to court, and my theme for my court case would be that I was acting in self-defense because Mark's 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and I thought he was going to kill me. So, that would be kind of like the theme that we came up with, and the theme that I played on every single witness was, what facts and evidence do you have that the codes are applicable to me? Objection sustained. What facts and evidence do you have that I believe that I have a requirement to file a tax, that I have a tax obligation required to file?
Right.
Objection sustained. So they literally asked for applicability of the laws to the Constitution. And so here was the response that Judge Lodge wrote up in back. It says, the tax laws, like any other laws, are the law of the land until changed by the Congress of the United States or held unconstitutional by an appellate court. It is not the duty of this court to provide justification for laws validly enacted by Congress and upheld by the appellate courts. The federal statutes at issue in this case have not been held to be unconstitutional. It is your duty to follow the law as given by the court. Now, those two, I read you a paragraph and I read you a final sentence. That's not what they handed the jury. They handed the jury the first part. It's not the duty of this court to provide justification, laws, Congress, whatever. But they said they changed it instead of a double negative, which actually changed the context, the texture relative to the first paragraph, which, I objected to. They overruled me, of course. And they said that the federal statutes at issue in this case have been held to be constitutional. It's your duty to follow the law as given by the court.
Which, of course, well, the thing is, it's not even an issue, and this is something that Lodge brought up in his order, his written order that we spoke about on the show. Nobody is arguing whether they're constitutional or valid or not. And we're talking about facts that they're applicable at all. They're two completely different issues. One is an issue of law, one is an issue of fact, and they cannot and they will not address the issue of fact because there are no facts. They have to just assume, these people. And so they had 20. I want to make it quick because we're going to have you on the show. We could talk about this in more detail. But they trotted out 28 witnesses, and 28 witnesses were unable to testify to pretty much the essential elements of the crimes, which were the applicability of the code and that you believed you were obligated, had a legitimate obligation to pay taxes and file returns and didn't.
They originally had a witness list of 40 people,
40.
of which 28 of them appeared, and I did not know. Let's see. I think I did not know until they rested. So I've been in court 4 days. So I'm in court now on my 5th day, and I did not know until that day that they were not going to call the other witnesses. And I'm Mark. If I had to conjecture that they knew that there was a track record being set up, they probably didn't like the results. They saw that from the first day I went into court, and I didn't hardly object to anything. And you guys were. I'd literally called you before I went to court and my lunch break after court,
right.
And you're like, Mike, you got to object to everything. You're not objecting. And then when I objected to everything, I told you guys, you're like, no. That's not real objecting. You gotta stay there and stand there and just don't sit down. They're just blowing you off. You're like, oh, you gotta really object to everything. And again, I don't speak court language. I don't know how. I don't know what I'm entitled to. I don't know any of this stuff. So but what happened was Tuesday I got a little better. Wednesday I got a little better. And I kept getting a little stronger as I went. And they saw, but there was that thing you taught me to stick with, and they saw a track record. They saw where I was going with this. But the witness they didn't call was my partner, who was named, already testified several times by the witnesses, so I could bring him up per somebody else's testimony that was already given, not testifying myself, that and this is what I asked the jury in the closing statement. I said, I gotta just ask this question. You were giving testimony by this person, about this person who was my business partner, who is on the witness list, who has already made a deal with the IRS. They're not going to prosecute him. Who made, and Agent so-and-so already said he made $1.1 million in 2003 that he didn't file taxes for, and it was his idea to get this business started, and we used his people to file the corporate tax returns and to take care of them, that I did not subpoena because I don't believe in forcing people to come here, but he was the one that was supposed to take care of the tax returns and promise them, and they're not here. I want you to think about why the IRS did this and allowed this to happen. And I don't know if it made an impact or not, but I think because of the nature of the questions that I was asking, and they knew I was going to rip my old partner apart because they saw that you were keeping a record of and they saw that every witness was not permitted to testify to essential elements of the crime. So I want to just put out there that, like you mentioned, you're not a lawyer. Well, you didn't mention it, but you don't have experience in court. This is really you're the first time in a real court, as some people would say, a real court. You don't know much of the language, and yet you went up against a seasoned U.S. attorney with paralegals and assistants, and even though they trotted out 28 witnesses, you got a hung jury on the 2 serious charges. They had four lawyers and 2 IRS experts there.
Right, and you still not having that much experience, because you stuck to the main issue, and that was what facts do you rely on that the code is applicable, and evidence that I believed I was required to file and pay taxes and didn't, because you stuck to the core issues, the facts, which of course they never have. Because of that, you were able to establish a track record where not one of the 28 witnesses had evidence to any of those essential elements of the crime. Not only were your objections to their testimony being irrelevant, arbitrarily denied every time by Edward Lodge, but every single time on cross-examination, you were refused to cross-examine, to question him on that. That, I think, is pretty significant, and I don't think that was lost on the jury. So I think, even though the 2 misdemeanor charges, so far you've been convicted, I believe that we can possibly get that thrown out, because they do not make any sense at all to hang on tax evasion but convict you for willful failure to file. It doesn't make any sense. It can't be rationally one or the other. It's got to be both.
That's putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, there has to be both. So I think you did pretty good considering what you were up against. So if anyone was to turn around and want to tear you down, the fact is you got a hung jury your first time out of the gate again with felonies against seasoned. Hey, this woman who you said, this U.S. attorney, Lori Hendrickson, was shaking. And she was absolutely, I think she was beyond upset that the jury hung on the 2 serious charges, because here you got a 10-year investigation. They're calling all these witnesses. A lot of them were coming in from outside of Idaho, right?
Predominantly.
Yeah, so there's a lot of expenses that they went through, which is no big deal, because they're using money that they stole from other people who you actually created the wealth and provided a service on a voluntary basis. They stole from their productive, so it's not their money. They don't care. But you did this so far. You've done really well to go after a team of seasoned U.S. attorneys whose job it is to litigate. And you went in there, and with the simple model of sticking to the facts, you got a hung jury.
And you will probably never know how eternally grateful I will be that I found you literally less than 3 weeks before this case started and this trial started, and how grateful I am.
Well, I appreciate that. We're gonna wrap this up. I do appreciate that. I look forward to having you on the show again and go through more of the details. We'll be following this. We'll do some, like I said, a motion to set aside or vacate, a motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict, because there was no evidence. There still isn't. But we'll be tracking this. But again, my friend, congratulations. I think you did really well. And the only way someone would tear you down is like what they've done to me. It'll just be personal attacks, and it's meaningless. You have to consider the source of it, that you went against a team, everybody, a team of seasoned U.S. attorneys with all the resources at their fingertips, millions of dollars of other people's money, and 28 witnesses. You got a hung jury. So, again, a big congratulations.
Mark, I can't wait to share the details with people. If we're able to help anybody through anything that they're going through in any way, I would be sincerely honored and grateful.
Well, I do appreciate that, and we'll talk again more on the show. Thank you. Thanks again, Mike.